Do you see that? It's 68. I know what you're thinking. This must have been filmed months ago. It's probably from last year. What's the deal? It is August 20th. You also should have seen 820. Saturday, August 20th. Just filmed this a couple nights ago. Brand new NWS Pliers wrench gripper. That video came out this morning. It is 68. It's 5:20 and it's 68. That's insane. We're typically not 68 degrees at 5 a.m. There has been a front come through with some storms. It's overcast. It was dumping rain earlier. Supposed to pick up in intensity later. I cannot pass up a chance to be in the shop in August when it's 68 degrees. So I wanted to just kind of jump in on what I had planned, but I thought, you know what, there's some stuff I might actually be able to use and get a feel for what I have planned to do this afternoon. So I thought we'd jump in and do a quick little tool haul. So if you somehow missed this video, came out again Saturday the 20th, 9 a.m. This is brand new from NWS. It is their take on the Pliers wrench. If you're thinking like, wait, NWS never had a Pliers wrench? No, this thing's brand new. Pretty cool. It seems solid thus far. The thing that's unique about it, aside from the design and of course the fantastic sci-fi soft grips, is that scale. Which the more that I thought about this, I was like, you know, that's actually kind of a cool feature. And while you can come in and do fasteners, you can also do, like I said, if you bend sheet metal frequently with these, which is something I do with mine, I would obviously prefer, you know, like eighth, quarter, so on and so forth, imperial, fractional, whatever you want to call it. But you can come in, and if I decide like 15 millimeter marks about where I want the tab to be, where I can have a fan shroud or something and shoot that through the core support, not a bad little addition there. So again, check those out. Limited stock. You probably won't see this video for a while, but at this time they're brand new. So with that said, we're kind of gonna throw this stuff down and then I'll unbox it, take it out of the packaging, give it a better look around, and to save time I've just gone ahead and pinned the numbers down. I guess we can sort of go alphabetical, and we'll just throw down a bunch of stuff from Lisle. Alright, so Lisle, of course, typically made in the USA, kind of automotive based products. And this is just an assortment of things that I think are going to come in handy for me. I have never found a terminal release tool that I'm really happy with. If you get like a set, it's like one of them works well and then the rest of them don't. Pico, I'm not sure who the OEM would be. I've got some of those little acetate handles. I thought this one was going to be like the green one that was padded. I don't know what happened. But that's what this is. We'll give this one a go. It's from Lisle. It is their part number 56500. It is their terminal tool as discussed. And basically, if you've ever seen one of these and you thought, what is this stupid thing in this guy's toolbox? Well, that's what it is. You know, all your connectors that you see over here, a host of different connectors anyway. Each one of these, sometimes they're hollow, sometimes they're solid, sometimes it's a combination. It's just designed to release terminals. If you've ever come in and done a lot of harness work, added, subtracted, made your own stuff, fuel pumps, electric fans, relay boards, all that kind of stuff, you need decent terminal release tools. Even like stereo, you know, AV stuff, security systems. Just a good thing to have. And like I said, I've struggled to find something that I'm actually happy with across the board. So their selling points: removes wire from terminal blocks without damage. And if we flip it around, you'll kind of see what they're telling you that they want you to do. Insert and twist tool. So basically in this case, you've got your traditional like old school connector. We'd shove that in there, twist it, and that should release the wire. Right here, this is sort of more like, say, your like the Kenwood stuff, you know, the stereo stuff we've been messing with in the Ram Revival. That would be good there. It basically, the hollow sides will collapse the brads, the pins, the catches, whatever you want to call them, and that will allow it to come out easily without you having to go in. I've been using picks because I found that works better than what I have terminal related. Right here with this style connector, you just see the next drawing for the position, and boom, you slip out the wire. So it's kind of one of those deals, once you know what you're working with, you figure it out, you go to town from there. 926, I figured I would give it a go. Sticking with the electrical theme here, we've got relay pliers, and you're thinking like, oh, relay pliers, these kind of look lame. Couldn't you use something else for that? The answer is yeah. I typically have used like needle nose. Sometimes I even come in with, you know, like a Cobra style plier or channel locks. The situation is, like, as you get more and more, either one of two things, into late models, or if you're doing like, you know, kind of high-end, you know, lightweight race stuff, You don't have like this glorious little setup where you have like 2 relays, or you've got, you know, like one over here and one over here, so you can easily get to them and pry them out, whatever. It's a situation where it's like, okay, well, this is my relay board, and I'm going to make it fit on this piece of carbon fiber. And so they're stacked, right? It's one of those things. Aesthetically, it's super pleasing. It keeps a compact footprint, makes the wire bundles nice and tidy. The situation, though, is when you need to pull the relay, kind of hard, right? And if you think about a typical pair of needle nose, which, you know, just insert your brand of choice, doesn't matter if it's Knipex, NWS, Stavilla, whatever, Snap-on, again, whatever you want. Like, you can come out here and, yeah, you could probably open this wide enough to maybe grab the relay and shimmy it, but most needle nose pliers aren't designed to be out this wide, right? And then it's a situation, this comes to a point, right? Because it's needle nose. Combination pliers, you'd have the same situation. If you've looked at this close, sort of like the horns on a beetle, right? You know, it comes out and it's got that little kick out. It's almost like a jaw puller or a gear puller. And that will allow you to get up under there. And if you'll note, those are infinitely wider. Like here's traditional needle nose would be here and open. This, by kicking it out, it's going to have plenty of space. It'll also snake in tight areas. That's where you have trouble using like traditional pliers or the Cobras. You might be able to get the grip, but if you don't have the ability to get to this side, if you want to pull relay 3 out of 5, you've got 2 on either side, you're screwed, right? So in order to get to it, you have to pull these 2 or these 2, and then you can come in. But you really don't want to pull them if you don't have to. That's where a dedicated tool comes in. So their part number 46950. That thing will set you back $15.48. All of this, I don't think I mentioned, it was National Tool Warehouse. So I think I got something off on top of that as well. But as you can see, they say that these will remove electrical relays on most domestic and import vehicles. If we flip this around, it sort of shows you how to use it, which again, if you needed a visual on it. But again, like, this isn't so bad, right? You could get to that relay fairly easy by hand, pry bar, regular pliers, whatever you've got. Picture this one, relay number 2 in that scenario. Kind of a pain in the butt, right? So going by their selling points on this, let's go ahead and see what they have to say. Offset handle and thin tips allow access to relays in confined areas. Specifically designed tips are angled to fit slots or edge of a relay cover. This allows the relay to pop free from socket with less chance of damaging the cover. Also works on many heavy-duty and industrial applications. So, if any of you ever service lathes, mills, CNC stuff, drill presses, you know, you'll get in some situations, and it's rare, especially the newer they get, and, you know, that you've just got like the 1 or 2 relays again. So this should be a nice addition, and there's many other things you can use these for, so I'm sure you'll see those quite frequently. This last item from Lisle, it is their part number 54150. You're thinking like, oh, it's a battery terminal tool. I rarely have to use, like, I've never had one of these, number one, so like if I've ever struggled to get a terminal off, I usually like get a pry bar underneath it and just slide her up. That's mainly when I work on other people's crud, okay? One of the first things I do, I don't care what I'm doing, if it's under the hood, if I've got to like swap valve covers for somebody, I disconnect the battery. Late model Challengers and stuff, you know, like battery in the trunk, you don't have to. Race cars, you're usually covered. But if I'm up under the hood and there's a battery, it's getting disconnected. I don't care if you have to reset your clock. I don't care if it doesn't save your radio presets or something lame like that. It's getting disconnected. I've had issues in the past, like when I was 14, I sparked a wire back on the firewall. Batteries ever since then have been disconnected. Again, doesn't matter what I'm doing. Doesn't matter if it's not electrical. It's disconnected. So this will help in that front. But to be totally honest with you, I bought this for merit number 2, which if you can see over there, battery terminal, and you're like, yeah, that's what I would use that for. That's what it looks like. Well, wiper arm puller. This is a big deal to me. Wiper arms are supposed to be easy to get off, and sometimes they're not, especially when you're dealing with, you know, a car from the 50s, 60s, or 70s, and it's like a survivor. It's something that's like sat in a field since the late 70s or early 80s. Sometimes you get lucky, you know, and they pop right off, and other times it's like, man, I wish I had something for that so I wasn't tearing this. What inevitably happens is if you're sitting there and you're trying to pry it off with, you know, standard hand tools, you'll get it, but it's very easy to slip. And I mean, we're talking like, you know, on your typical A, B, or E body, you've got like this much space. And so when you slip, the tip of whatever you're using, which is likely flat and sharp, not necessarily razor sharp, but, you know, sharp for paint. It goes down and hits the cowl. And, you know, a lot of times it's not a big issue, you know, because it's like a beat up, you know, junker car or survivor type of a thing, but it just bothers me. And then if you're like, well, you know, throw a rag or something underneath there, problem solved. A lot of times you can't. And so that's really what I bought this for, but again, with the battery terminals, it could come in handy. Just sort of depends what you're working on, where you're at, how well people take care of things before they bring them to you. Any of my batteries, once I'm installed and going, I don't have that problem. We use dielectric grease, felt washers, all sorts of things. Also, better terminals help. But if you didn't know, it removes battery terminals or bolted on wiper arms. Again, you can kind of see there the scenario for each. There's the terminal, there's that. Again, the center pad would come down just like on the relay puller. There's the forks. They would get up underneath the terminal. You tighten this, and it's nice that it has the T-handle. A lot of times cheap ones, you'd probably just have that knob. So the T-handle will let me spin it a little quicker, and as this goes down, this goes up. It pulls the fitting. You're home free, right? Just a glorified little gear puller, basically. That is what we picked up from Lisle, and if you're thinking like, oh, well, that's cool, useful stuff, but man, I thought this video would have more neat things. Well, it does. We're not done. This right here, I couldn't really pass it up. I want to say it was on like the super clearance, super sale section on the website, and it caught my eye. And, what it is, it's from Mayhew. It's their part number 17954. I am not sure. I don't believe this is American. I think it's an import, but just the price point and the size appealed to me. So if you're looking at it and you're like, oh, it's a mirror, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. So $11.19, as you can see I pinned on there. 3 1/4 inch. Every inspection mirror I have is like tiny. It's almost like a dentist deal. In fact, some of them are. One time I had like a dentist when I was little, instead of like a toothbrush, they gave me a mirror. I guess they were out of toothbrushes and they didn't want to make me feel bad because I was a little kid, and I've kept it, and it's out here now. And the problem is that thing fogs it. It's like a junker, but every once in a while, you know, like you can initially see something. And this, though, is just the size. I thought it was worth trying. So pivoting ball joint, as you can kind of see there, this is not the greatest quality thing when you see these like screws coming through a nut with no locking provision. It's another story. I'm sure many of you have experienced that when you get this out there, you know, and it's been used a few times, and then clink, it falls off or falls down somewhere. And next thing you know, you're trying to retrieve the mirror that you were using to try and see the fasteners you need to remove. Wastes a lot of time. It's a shame we don't just take the time to put a nylock on that or something. Telescoping stainless steel handle, so it's cool. It's at least stainless. Then again, that does create issues when you're trying to retrieve it with a magnet. Let's just go ahead. Probably not the best stainless, but who knows. It'll extend. This was another selling point. 10 1/4 to 29. 30 inches, 29 inches. That's a pretty good range there. So if this was a deal and you were like on the back side of a K-member and you needed to see what was up at the front, so you can kind of try to like latch your wrench or something on the opposite side of an impact, this could come in handy. Also, so many times, when you're under a vehicle, you know, it's like a deal where you've got, you know, a 5/8 socket on this side, and you've got, you know, your 5/8 wrench, and you just can't get it, and you're like, what's going on? And then it's a deal where it's a larger nut, you know, it doesn't match, if you will. You run into that a lot with suspension stuff. And this right here, you might just be able to take a gander at it and be like, oh, that's the problem. Roll back out, get a bigger socket, come back, line it up, and go to town. The cushion handle, I think, should be fairly nice. Spinning it around, nothing really to see here. Yeah, this one is made in China. So again, kind of a buzzkill, but it's also not a bad buy at $11, assuming it stays together. So I think what we will do, I'm going to cut here. We're going to literally cut these 4 items open so we can kind of play with them a little bit. And then we've got 2 more items. They're probably the cooler items, or the more like, ooh, you know, tool haul type thing items. And I think you'll enjoy those maybe a little bit more. That said, these should be pretty functional. These are items that if you have them, you're going to use them. They're going to be super useful. But it's not going to ever be anything like, oh, yeah, tell me about that. But you'll have them, and you'll appreciate them. It's just not quite the eye candy, if you will. But anyway, I'm going to get these opened up, and then we'll introduce the other 2 items and call this a video. Well, I nearly fired this up with the other 2 items we haven't introduced yet. I took a thumbnail. I always wonder, Would you rather see the items like opened up and in all their glory, or do you want to see them like in the packaging? I don't know what brings people in more. If you've got thoughts on that, feel free to let me know. A couple of things. We'll just start here with our relay pliers. Are they comfortable? No, they are not. But you're also not going to be using these for long periods of time. Also, this is something we could play around with. We could totally, it's actually not that bad. It's just it's a little... My hands are going to rest here, and that's a sharp edge, so I mean, that's something we could play around with some plastic dip or something on, but realistically, the main thing we're concerned about is the business end. Again, look at the range of these things, obviously, in tight cramps, like let's say you're getting relay 2 of 3, we would need to come in about like so, squeeze her down, and jostle it up. They're going to be super awesome. They're going to be well worth the money. It looks like these are riveted at the joint and at the jaw, so that should provide decent service life. And they are double dipped. They are textured. Again, you might want to do something more with them. And then again, right here, it's not necessarily like a sharp edge. It's just, like a flat edge, sort of flat stock or something where it's bent. Might be cool. You could either tape that, dip it, whatever you want to do, whatever floats your boat. Some people, you might be back here all the time and you think that's totally not needed. That does go. For a second I thought that seemed like a lot of this wasn't actually over metal, and I thought that's not good. But anyway, they're going to be a nice addition. Not the most comfortable thing you're ever going to use, but again, they were also very reasonably priced, and as best I know, made in the USA. And this one right here, just a little point of interest for you, did turn out to be flash rust. I saw that in the packaging and I thought, oh, it's just like grease or something. It's not showing up well on the camera. This does have a little bit, like transfer rust on it. Nothing crazy. We'll clean it up with some ballast tool. Just worth noting, but again, for 10 bucks, if it works good on even one little terminal, I guess that'll be a good addition to the shop. And then right here, out of the box, this thing is fairly beefy, especially considering the price point. But again, anytime there's a T-handle, it's just so much more convenient for you. So that kind of runs her down. We've got decent range there. Let's see here. Kind of get the idea here. So yeah, I think this will be a worthwhile addition as well. The most disappointing of the first 4 items that we introduced is definitely the mirror, which apparently I left on the toolbox over there. And, let me just run and grab that so we don't jump around too much. Yeah, so this doesn't look terrible, like through the camera. It is not the most clarity-driven thing I've ever seen. Like, I'm not gonna lie, when it was in the packaging, I sort of thought there was gonna be like a protective film across it, and that's why it looked cloudy and grainy. That's just how the mirror is. Again, it was $11. I think it was on sale. If I can find an Ullman one that's made in the US, I think I'm going to give that a go. Maybe in a different size. We'll let this be the 3 1/4 one. I think it's going to work okay. It's just I don't have a lot of faith in it. If I flip it around and that looks like the bottom of like a soup can, that's the impression I get. It's also like super dirty. And that's not for me, and that kind of makes me think like it's going to be a weak, inferior metal. Also, the solder job there is kind of, I don't know. I feel like if you flex this thing too much, if this is like tight and it puts the wear there, I think this will just snap off, and this will be like something you can give to your wife or girlfriend to, I don't know, throw in the glove box of your truck, and then she's like, oh, I need to do my makeup, paint my face up like a peacock. Maybe it serves a purpose. Coming out, I mean, it does have decent stretch. This would be max extension. The cat's paw logo, this part's actually comfortable feeling through it though. Obviously it's going to be hollow since it's telescopic. It doesn't feel like the strongest thing. Now that's great news if you want lightweight, maybe not the best news if you're worried about how these always bend. I think if you kept this last tier in, if you never had to go this far, it would kind of be the best case scenario. Again, so here's sort of our full run, if you will, across. It does get a little top heavy, obviously, but I think if you could keep it like this, never have to go to that 4th segment. Again, we've got the handle with what we'll call 1. This is our 2nd segment right to this point. Our 3rd segment, our 4th segment actually, and then there's a 5th. If you can keep the 5th segment in, That'll limit your length just a little bit, but I feel much better about this being the max reach with this thing. All in all, though, for the money, I think we'll give her a go. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I don't have the best feeling about that thing. I think I'll flip it over so it doesn't like annoy the camera as well. So, you know, remains to be seen. I'll give it a go, and it was a decent price. If it'll last me a couple of months, I guess we'll call it a wash and just move on to something else. And who knows, I could be pleasantly pleased with it. It could turn out to be great. And I'm like, man, what a steal that was. But until we use it, we don't know. But initial thing is kind of worried about it. Like I said, though, we will give it a fair shake. Coming in now, we're just going to go with this one because it's slightly... It's not disappointing. I'm just a little concerned about it. This is from Mechanics Time Saver. And if I flip it over... And I don't know that you can tell, but if you're thinking like, I have no idea what this is, dude, like the bottom side of something, it is. But I want you to look at it in this manner, because if you're thinking like, hey, shouldn't that be like straight? It should. It's got a bow in it. This is nothing from Mechanics Time Saver. Like, I think you can kind of see this trough now that it's upside, right? Like 10's pretty high. We're sinking down, bottom of the ocean here, like 15 to 16, and then we kick back up, and then in addition to that, it's not like it levels out and goes straight. Like, this continues the upward trend, you know, sort of like you're here on the bank, you swim across the pond, and then you start your ascent up towards the mountainous regions, right? So I'm a little worried about that. I think that if we populate it with sockets, the weight should sink it down and correct it. But that's how it shipped. It was sort of wedged in the box. The plastic was torn by another tool that we'll probably showcase next, and it sort of just got the peg a little dirty. Not the end of the world. Let me get the plastic wrap off in the event that it releases with any, but I don't think it's going to, because these are pretty dadgum rigid. This is one of those things. You've seen me bring these in. We've got prototype orange ones from them, and it's either a kind of a love it or a hate it design. I've told you, like, I could see, like, buddies ribbing on you, saying, like, oh, that's a like kindergarten socket organizer deal. And, I'm not going to lie, I kind of like them. There's certain situations I wouldn't want to use them, something else would be superior, and then there's certain applications where it's sort of like, this is kind of tough to beat now. Downsides are obvious. They're not the cheapest, most economical thing. Granted, this one is half-inch metric, if you hadn't figured that out already. $26.31 was the price. If you look around, you can sometimes catch pretty solid buys on these. It matches perfectly with the Alphas, which, by the way, 20% off using discount code Lone Star. I make nothing, just get you some good gloves. I think you can see that there. But, oh man, I don't know. That's, like I said, definitely a shipping issue. I think it'll turn out, but man, that stands out really good, which is exactly what I wanted. I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to lay everything out. I know this is something that I wanted to use, wanted to try. When we brought in the friction peg holders from Carlisle or Napa, they're blue. They sort of have like a custom color, if you will, and they sort of have that flipped with the color scheme on the numbers. But I only got, I think, a 3/8 metric, and I was sitting there and I was like, you know, I kind of like this. Obviously, they've sent us the orange prototypes, which hopefully they bring those to market. But you're like, well, what in the world are you going to do with this? Like, is it going to be impact or chrome sockets or 6 or 12 point? Here's the thought process as it stands now. At this point in time, I've got these Stavila sockets that we're sort of building out. Half-inch drive, 12-point metric. Mainly just because, again, that Christmas set, KC Tool a couple years ago, 10, 13, 17, 19... I was like, man, that's a good start to a socket set, you know, to cover the bases. And I kind of have slowly been filling that out, you know, as I need, like, items added on for free shipping or tool of the day or something. And this is kind of what Stavila sockets would look like on there. Currently, they're on some mag rails in the US General, and then I've got the 4, just because out of habit now, I've had them for so long. I've still got them in the Husky. An eventual plan is to have them all across somewhere. But that's sort of what I was thinking I would do with them. And I'm kind of excited to take it to the next level, and especially get some weight on it just to get the thing down. But who knows, maybe they'll wind up holding impact, I'm not 100% sure, but I know I have a plan for them. I just have to feel everything else out, see how it all stacks up. Sales, promotions could all have something to do with 6, 12, divided, split, brand A, B, chrome, impact. It's all sort of up in the air, but this will definitely get used, most likely at this point in time, with just the standard 12-point style villas. So hopefully, like I said, with weight, this thing will, I know there's pliers underneath it, but like if I press down, like we should not have this seesaw effect, right? It should be uniformly going up, and it's not, because there's that huge bow in it. So like I said, that's not mechanics time savers. It's, I'm sure UPS doesn't help any, but just the way it was like wedged into the box, I think is sort of what happened and went wrong. So we shall see. And that means we have one more item, and this one might possibly be the steal. The entire, like, we got some pretty good buys here, but this one was like, I think this was truly like a closeout deal, kind of going away, not coming back type of a thing, which is a buzzkill. But it was $13.98. I don't know if it's going to be any good or not, but you can't really have too many of these things, and you can always throw it in a different box or go mobile with it. And it's from Astro. There's my chicken scratch up there. And if I get it out so you can see it a little easier, you're thinking like, oh, hey, Astro Ratchet, cool. You just had to scratch that itch, see what it's like, huh? Yeah, it's their part number, 93808, and you're like, well, I can't see it, your thumb's there. Well, that's for a reason. 3/8 drive head and a 1/4-inch ratchet body. This is one of those things for clearance, right? So many times it's nice to have the weird stuff, the super stubbies that you're like, those are stupid, no one's ever going to use them. And then you need one, you're like, well, it's the greatest thing ever. Type of a deal. Right here, this is kind of hopefully the same scenario. I want to say this is 72 tooth. It doesn't actually tell us on here. It's made in Taiwan, that is obvious. It was patented US. The handle is not terrible, fairly comfortable. Selector switch is confidence inspiring. It's not one of those ones that's just wee, you know, going side to side like crazy. Let's go ahead and take a listen. I'd say it sounds like 72. It's got pretty good drag on it. Meaning like when I come up here, the return angle, kind of what I'm referencing there, I don't have to like stop and then like click, click, it re-engages. So it's sort of like we stop and we're back. So I think it's fairly high tooth count. Let's go ahead and I'll see, what does it want me to cut? I guess a little plastic tab. I'll have to go grab something to do that. But, or actually, maybe we can just rip the thing out of here. Cover your eyes, kids. This could get ugly. Oh yeah, we don't need no scissors in this shop. So, right there, what does that say? Astro Tools. I want to zoom in on that. I've always liked their font. Minor thing, totally irrelevant, but they sort of, it kind of does seem futuristic, right? So it's very hard for you to see that with the glare off of the chrome, but just trust me, it looks very similar to that. Just picture it etched in. And, that's what she looks like out of the box. Now, do I have, there's the old trusty Stanley. We'll see what it's got to say for the overall length. So this would basically be like a long 1/4 drive, not super long, but like longer than usual. And we'll call her right at about 7 3/4. So that's, again, good size. For a 1/4 drive, for 3/8, it's also fairly common, you know, 7 to 8. The head is not the thinnest thing in the world, but again, this is by Astro standards and by most, you know, like budget ratchets, this is kind of a cool little deal, and especially for what, $14? I don't really think we could go wrong with it. That's why we brought it in. So it'll just be a nice little addition to the shop, and ultimately over time we'll see what we think of it. But, with that said, this is what we brought in. This is what we picked up from National Tool Warehouse this time. Lots of Lisle stuff. Some really, you gotta admit, even if you think that this socket style holder is dorky, which again I could see that being a critique of it, it does accomplish two big things. Number one, it organizes your sockets quite nicely. It makes them very easy and visible to read, including the backside. That's, if you're not sure, that's designed for your shallows up front, deep in the back. You could flip it if you wanted to. It's just a super nice option in my opinion. So I'm gonna get that in the box, get some weight on it. Might play around. I've got better, more pressing things to do, but I'm really tempted to kind of like coat up to this bend, probably like about right there, that last bend. I think that would make these a nice little change there. Maybe we'll do that in the future. This little guy, we'll feel him out over time. In fact, I've got something, if I make enough progress on one of the projects, I'll actually put this through the paces. This is just kind of thinking ahead type of a tool. That thing I'll actually probably use this afternoon. If it lasts, that's a good sign. If it breaks, well, I'll probably come in with an update on this. But with that said, if you've used any of this stuff, let me know your thoughts on it. If you've had a Bode MTS tray, hopefully they sink down. Let me know if that wasn't the case. Maybe I need to like contact them. The sooner the better. Similarly, what do you think of these Lisle tools? Do you have any of them? Do you use them? Do you love them? Do you have something better? What do you do for terminal release tools? Now, I'm not gonna lie, I've seen the snap-on ones. I'm the type of guy, I tend to prefer, this is super convenient, you know, having all these different options available at one time, works for various sizes and a couple different styles. I'm kind of one of those weird guys that prefers, you know, like you could just buy a bit driver and a whole bunch of bits and save money and go to town and get a backup handle and a third backup handle. I sort of like having the dedicated tool, right? I want the T10 through the T50. You know, I want the Phillips 1, 2, 3, and 4 type of a deal. I don't just want the bit. And so I've seen snap-ons. I've wondered if they're worth getting. I don't know. Still planning to do a snap-on haul at 10K. Mac at 7,500. We're much closer to that than snap-on. But I don't know if they're worth doing. Again, I typically get disappointed by things I buy, and I wind up just going back to picks. So we'll see. Like I said, the little Pico ones, you probably know what I'm talking about, the acetate handles. Basically take it out of this hex body and put a little dinky acetate handle where my thumb is. Some of those work good and some of them suck. And like I said, when I'm like, well, let me try this, I'll bring it in and I have the same thing happen. And I'd prefer to just have like one thing I can go to that works really well. Maybe this will be it, remains to be seen. These are going to come in stupid handy. Again, you can do all sorts of things with them. And the mirror, we'll try. I'm not like super confident in its performance abilities, but we will give it a go. Yeah. Stainless, they say. The biggest weakness, again, is going to be that screw right there. The shaft, for what it's worth, seems to be a good stainless, but we'll leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts on any of this stuff, and again, over time, we'll sort of be able to feel them all out. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you're having yourself a fantastic start to your weekend, or maybe this will be a Wednesday video, and weekend will come along soon enough for you. Well, it's LoneStarMopars.com is the website. You can find us Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all three at Lone Star Mopars. With that said, have a fantastic week. I will catch you back here for more action from the shop.